F6 It began as a private promise whispered years ago between a grieving son and the woman who helped him heal. Few believed it would ever be fulfilled. But when Princess Catherine was quietly summoned to a confidential meeting inside Kensington Palace, everything changed. What happened behind those closed doors left her overwhelmed with emotion and set the stage for one of the most meaningful royal moments in recent memory. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For years, there had been whispers circulating through royal corridors about a promise Prince William had never forgotten. It was not a promise tied to crowns, titles, or constitutional duty. It was something far more personal, something rooted in grief, loyalty, and the lasting memory of the woman whose absence still echoes through every generation of the modern monarchy. Those closest to William often suggested that there were certain commitments he carried quietly, away from public appearances and official engagements. While the world saw a future king preparing for his destiny, there were private chapters of his life that remained hidden behind palace walls. Then, unexpectedly, those hidden chapters appeared to be moving toward a conclusion. Reports began emerging that William had requested a highly confidential meeting with Catherine. The gathering was handled with unusual care. Senior palace staff were reportedly instructed to keep details restricted to only a small circle of trusted individuals. Even within royal circles, the secrecy raised eyebrows. Such precautions were normally reserved for matters of enormous personal or institutional importance. As speculation spread, royal observers struggled to understand what could justify such extraordinary discretion. The rumors only intensified when insiders noticed subtle changes in the atmosphere surrounding the Prince and Princess of Wales. Palace sources hinted that discussions had been taking place behind the scenes for weeks. Some believed the family was preparing for a major announcement. Others suspected the matter involved an important piece of royal history. Yet no one seemed willing to provide a complete explanation. Every answer only produced more questions. Then came the moment that captured everyone's attention. Following the private meeting, Catherine reportedly emerged visibly emotional. Those familiar with royal protocol understood how unusual that was. Over the years, she had become known for her composure during moments of pressure, criticism, and personal hardship. Yet this time, something appeared different. Sources suggested she was deeply moved by whatever had been discussed inside that room. The emotional weight of the meeting seemed impossible to hide. Almost immediately, attention turned toward a treasured possession connected to Princess Diana. The mere mention of Diana's name transformed an ordinary rumor into something far more powerful. Decades after her passing, Diana remains one of the most beloved and influential figures in royal history. Any connection to her legacy carries extraordinary significance. As whispers spread, royal insiders began suggesting that a promise made long ago was finally being honored. What made the situation even more compelling was the growing belief that this was never simply about an object. It was about trust. It was about memory. It was about the bond between William and Catherine, forged through years of challenges, sacrifices, and shared responsibility. If the reports were true, then this moment represented far more than the transfer of a treasured heirloom. It represented the fulfillment of something deeply personal that had been years in the making. And as speculation continued to build, one question lingered above all others. What was so special about this treasured piece of Diana's legacy that it could leave Catherine overwhelmed with emotion after all these years? But the story behind that promise began decades earlier with a young princess whose legacy still shapes the future of the monarchy. Long before Catherine entered royal life, Princess Diana had carefully preserved several deeply personal heirlooms objects that carried memories, heartbreak, and hope. Among them was one piece that insiders often described as priceless, not because of its value, but because of what it represented. To understand why Catherine's emotional reaction carried such weight, it is necessary to travel back to a very different chapter in royal history. Long before William became the future king, and long before Catherine ever imagined becoming Princess of Wales, there was Diana. To millions around the world, she was a symbol of compassion, grace, and resilience. Yet behind the public admiration was a woman who carried profound personal struggles, difficult choices, and private dreams for the future of her children. Throughout those turbulent years, Diana reportedly kept a small collection of treasured heirlooms close to her heart. These were not simply possessions. They were reminders of who she was, what she endured, and what she hoped would one day survive beyond her own lifetime. Among those cherished pieces was one heirloom that occupied a special place in her personal world. Royal insiders have long suggested that Diana viewed it differently from the many jewels, gifts, and royal treasures that passed through her hands. While others saw an object of historical importance, Diana reportedly saw something far more meaningful. It represented continuity. It represented family. Most importantly, it represented the unbreakable connection between generations of women who carried enormous responsibility while navigating extraordinary pressures. The history of the heirloom itself stretched deep into royal tradition. Long before Diana became its guardian, it had reportedly passed through members of the royal family who understood its symbolic significance. Each generation added new meaning to its story. Every transition carried memories of triumph, sacrifice, and change. Over time, the piece became more than a family treasure. It evolved into a silent witness to history itself, preserving emotions and experiences that could never be recorded in official documents. For Diana, however, the heirloom was never merely about tradition. According to those familiar with her thinking, it reminded her of the values she hoped would guide William's future. Duty balanced with compassion, strength balanced with kindness, responsibility balanced with humanity. As her public life grew increasingly complicated, these ideals became even more important to her. She reportedly believed that true legacy was not measured by titles or privilege, but by the impact one left on the lives of others. That belief helps explain why public fascination with Diana's legacy has never faded. Decades after her passing, her influence continues to shape conversations about the monarchy. New generations discover her story. Old admirers continue to celebrate her memory. Every reminder of Diana carries emotional significance because people see more than a royal figure. They see a woman whose struggles and triumphs still resonate today. No one understood that reality more deeply than William. Unlike the public, he did not know Diana through headlines or photographs. He knew her as his mother. He carried memories that no history book could ever capture. As the years passed, protecting her legacy became one of the most important responsibilities of his life. Those close to him often suggested that preserving her memory was not simply an act of remembrance. It was a promise. Gradually, another belief began to emerge within royal circles. Many started to feel that if the heirloom were ever passed on, there was only one person who truly embodied the values Diana cherished. Catherine's quiet dedication, her commitment to duty, and her steady support of William led many to view her as a natural guardian of that legacy. Yet despite growing expectations and years of speculation, the decision never came. The heirloom remained surrounded by mystery, its future uncertain as time continued to pass. Yet despite years of expectation, the heirloom remained locked away, untouched and unseen, as William waited for the perfect moment. Some promises fade with time. This one only grew stronger. Behind palace walls, William reportedly carried a quiet commitment for years, a commitment tied not to duty or protocol, but to love, gratitude, and family. As the years passed, many things in William's life changed. His responsibilities grew heavier. His role within the monarchy expanded. Public expectations increased with every passing year. Yet beneath the weight of royal duty remained a deeply personal mission that never seemed to leave him. Those closest to him often suggested that while he was preparing for the future of the crown, he was also carrying a promise rooted firmly in the past. It was a promise connected to Diana, a mother whose influence never disappeared despite the passage of time. William's bond with Diana was unlike anything the public could fully understand. Millions admired her from afar, but he experienced both her public triumphs and private struggles firsthand. He witnessed her compassion, her determination, and her ability to connect with people regardless of status or circumstance. Those memories stayed with him long after her passing. While the world continued to remember Diana as a beloved princess, William remembered the woman who encouraged him, protected him, and helped shape the values that would guide him throughout his life. That connection made preserving her legacy deeply personal. It was never simply about honoring history. It was about ensuring that the qualities Diana represented would continue to matter in a rapidly changing world. According to royal insiders, William often approached decisions involving his mother's memory with extraordinary care. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was treated lightly. Every choice carried emotional weight because it involved protecting something that could never truly be replaced. Over the years, private conversations reportedly took place regarding the treasured heirloom. Family members, trusted advisors, and those closest to William occasionally discussed its future. Questions emerged repeatedly. Who should inherit it? When should it be passed on? What moment would carry the significance such a gesture deserved? While many expected a decision sooner, William reportedly resisted pressure. He believed the timing needed to be perfect. This was not merely a transfer of ownership. It was the fulfillment of a promise that had been years in the making. Throughout that journey, Catherine played a role that became increasingly important. During moments of uncertainty, public scrutiny, and personal challenges, she remained a constant source of support. She stood beside William through periods of immense pressure that tested both their resilience and their commitment to one another. As their partnership strengthened, so did William's belief that Catherine embodied many of the qualities he had admired, most in his mother. Her dedication to duty, her compassion toward others, and her quiet strength during difficult times reinforced that belief year after year. Yet despite those feelings, William continued to wait. Some interpreted the delay as hesitation. Others assumed circumstances simply prevented the promise from being fulfilled. But those closest to the situation suggested something entirely different. William was waiting because he understood the magnitude of the moment. Once the heirloom changed hands, it would symbolize more than remembrance. It would represent trust, continuity, and the passing of a deeply personal legacy from one chapter of royal history to another. Then subtle signs began to emerge. Conversations reportedly became more frequent. Preparations quietly accelerated behind the scenes. Individuals who had once remained distant from the matter suddenly became involved. What had remained dormant for years appeared to be moving toward a conclusion. The promise William had protected for so long was no longer a distant possibility. For the first time, it seemed within reach. Then, without warning, a series of events convinced William that the time had finally arrived. Weeks before the emotional meeting, unusual activity reportedly began behind the scenes. Trusted aides were contacted, secure arrangements were made, and whispers started circulating that something extraordinary was being planned. At first, the signs were so subtle that most people failed to notice them. A small meeting here, a confidential discussion there, nothing dramatic on the surface. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm of royal life, a carefully coordinated effort was quietly taking shape. According to insiders, a select group of trusted palace staff had been given a highly sensitive assignment. They were instructed to organize a private presentation unlike any other. Details were tightly controlled. Access was restricted. Information was shared only on a need-to-know basis. Even among experienced royal aides, the level of secrecy reportedly stood out. As preparations advanced, attention reportedly turned toward the heirloom itself. For years, it had remained protected from public view, preserved as a treasured piece of Diana's legacy. Now, for the first time in a very long time, discussions surrounding its future appeared to be accelerating. Sources suggested that extraordinary care was taken regarding every aspect of its movement and handling. Nothing was left to chance. Every decision reflected an understanding that this was not simply an object being transferred. It represented decades of history, memory, and emotional significance. The growing secrecy only fueled speculation among those close to palace operations. Questions began circulating quietly behind closed doors. Why now? What had changed after so many years of waiting? Some believed a major family milestone was approaching. Others suspected that William had finally reached a personal decision he could no longer postpone. Yet despite the increasing curiosity, answers remained elusive. The closer observers came to understanding the truth, the more carefully information seemed to disappear. At the same time, extraordinary efforts were reportedly made to keep details away from the public. In an era when even the smallest royal development often becomes headline news within hours, the silence surrounding this matter was remarkable. Palace staff understood the importance of discretion. Leaks were avoided. Conversations were limited. Those involved appeared determined to protect the significance of the moment until everything was ready. What made the situation even more intriguing was the suggestion that several family members may have already been aware of the preparations. While details remain uncertain, insiders hinted that a handful of trusted relatives understood what William intended to do. They reportedly respected his decision to proceed privately and allowed events to unfold according to his wishes. The atmosphere surrounding the preparations gradually shifted from curiosity to anticipation. Those who knew the truth understood that something meaningful was approaching. Yet amid all the quiet planning, one person reportedly remained completely unaware. Catherine continued her responsibilities without any indication of what was happening behind the scenes. She attended engagements, fulfilled commitments, and carried on with the steady dedication that had defined her role for years. While conversations took place around her and preparations advanced in secret, she reportedly had no knowledge of what awaited her. That element of surprise was intentional. According to sources, William wanted the moment to arrive naturally, free from expectation or preparation. He wanted the gesture to carry its full emotional impact. As the days passed, anticipation reportedly reached extraordinary levels among those involved. Every detail had been arranged. Every precaution had been taken. The promise that had lingered for years was now closer than ever to becoming reality. What had once existed only as a quiet commitment was finally moving toward its conclusion, and those closest to the situation sensed that the outcome would be unforgettable. What no one expected was the powerful reaction Catherine would have when she finally saw the heirloom for herself. The room reportedly fell silent as William revealed the heirloom. For a brief moment, Catherine could barely speak. Years of memories, responsibility, and emotion seemed to collide all at once, leaving her visibly overwhelmed. After years of speculation, private conversations, and carefully guarded preparations, the moment had finally arrived. What had existed for so long as a promise, hidden beneath layers of time, discretion was now becoming reality. According to those familiar with the event, William chose to keep the occasion deeply personal. There were no grand announcements, no public statements, and no effort to turn the moment into a spectacle. Instead, he reportedly wanted it to remain exactly what it had always been intended to be: a meaningful act between two people whose lives had been shaped by loyalty, trust, and shared purpose. As the heirloom was finally presented, the emotional weight of the occasion reportedly became impossible to ignore. For Catherine, this was not simply an unexpected gift. It represented years of understanding William's journey, supporting him through personal struggles, and helping carry the responsibilities that came with his future role. Every challenge they had faced together seemed to converge in that single moment. The significance of what was being entrusted to her stretched far beyond history or tradition. It touched something deeply personal. Sources suggest that Catherine was overcome by emotion almost immediately. Those who know her often describe her as calm under pressure and remarkably composed during difficult circumstances. Yet this situation was different. The heirloom carried a connection to someone whose influence had quietly shaped many aspects of her own royal journey. Diana's presence had never been something Catherine sought to replace. Instead, she had spent years navigating the delicate balance between honoring that legacy and creating her own path. Now, standing at the center of a moment linked so closely to Diana's memory, the emotional act reportedly became overwhelming. For William, the experience was equally significant. While attention naturally focused on Catherine's reaction, insiders suggested that the moment represented the conclusion of a deeply personal chapter in his own life. For years, he had carried the responsibility of deciding when and how this promise should be fulfilled. He had protected the heirloom, preserved its meaning, and waited patiently for the right opportunity. Now that the decision had finally been made, he was reportedly confronted with the reality of what it truly represented. This was not just about passing something on. It was about letting go of a responsibility he had guarded for years, while ensuring that the legacy behind it would remain protected. The connection to Diana could be felt throughout the occasion. Not through formal speeches or public tributes, but through the emotions that surfaced as the significance of the heirloom became fully understood. Diana's story remained woven into every part of its history. Her hopes, values, and enduring influence seemed to linger within the meaning attached to it. In many ways, the presentation served as a reminder that while Diana was gone, the impact she left behind continued to shape the people she loved most. Reports suggest that even those fortunate enough to witness the exchange found themselves deeply moved. The atmosphere surrounding the moment reportedly carried a rare sense of sincerity that transcended royal tradition. It was not about status or ceremony. It was about family. It was about memory. It was about a promise finally honored after years of waiting. Yet as powerful as the moment was, its true meaning was only beginning to reveal itself. Because what William placed in Catherine's hands carried implications that reached far beyond emotion alone. But the significance of the gift extended far beyond a single emotional moment. To the public, it may have appeared to be a treasured keepsake. To the royal family, however, it represented something much greater, a bridge between the past, present, and future of the monarchy. As the emotions of that private moment began to settle, a deeper reality slowly emerged. The heirloom was never simply about history. It was never merely about preserving an object connected to a beloved princess. Its true significance rested in what it symbolized. Within royal circles, certain possessions carry meanings that extend far beyond their physical form. They become markers of trust, responsibility, and continuity. They tell a story that stretches across generations, linking those who came before with those who will one day carry the institution forward. This heirloom belonged firmly within that tradition. For Catherine, receiving it reportedly represented far more than an emotional tribute. It marked another important chapter in her evolving role within the monarchy. Over the years, she had transformed from a young woman navigating intense public attention into one of the most respected and trusted figures within the royal family. Through periods of celebration and moments of hardship, she remained steady. Through criticism and praise alike, she maintained her commitment to duty. That consistency earned admiration not only from the public, but also from those within the institution itself. Many observers began viewing the heirloom as a reflection of that journey. It was not simply being entrusted to Catherine because she was William's wife. It was being entrusted to her because she had demonstrated the qualities necessary to protect the values attached to it. Patience, resilience, compassion, dedication. These were qualities often associated with Diana herself, which made the connection even more meaningful, and that connection continues to resonate powerfully. Years after her passing, Diana's influence remains extraordinary. New generations continue to discover her story, while those who remember her firsthand still speak of her lasting impact. Her legacy has endured because it was never limited to royal titles or public appearances. It was rooted in human connection. People saw sincerity in her. They saw vulnerability, strength, and compassion existing side by side. Those qualities helped shape the affection that still surrounds her memory today. In many ways, that same public affection has increasingly extended toward Catherine. While the two women followed different paths and faced different circumstances, many people have drawn comparisons between them. Not because they are identical, but because both came to represent stability during periods of uncertainty. Both became symbols of dedication in an institution constantly adapting to change. And both earned admiration through actions rather than declarations. That continuity is precisely what gives the heirloom its greatest meaning. It serves as a reminder that while individuals may come and go, certain values continue to endure. Generations change, responsibilities shift, new challenges emerge. Yet the principles that sustain the monarchy remain connected through those willing to carry them forward. The heirloom became a symbol of that connection, linking Diana's memory to Catherine's future role and ultimately to the generations that will follow. Perhaps most importantly, it represented trust. William's decision was not simply an act of remembrance. It was an acknowledgement of responsibility. By placing the heirloom in Catherine's care, he was effectively recognizing her as a guardian of something larger than either of them. The object itself mattered, but the confidence behind the gesture mattered even more. It signaled belief, respect, and faith in the future. And as whispers of the extraordinary moment gradually began escaping the privacy of palace walls, it quickly became clear that people everywhere were eager to share their thoughts about what had just happened. As news of the moment began spreading, reactions quickly poured in from every corner of the royal world. Once whispers escaped the palace gates, royal watchers became captivated by the story. Many saw the gesture as one of the most touching tributes William had ever made to his mother's memory. The reaction was almost immediate. What began as quiet conversations among palace insiders quickly evolved into a wave of discussion that spread throughout royal circles and beyond. People who had followed William and Catherine's journey for years suddenly found themselves drawn into the emotional significance of the reported gesture. It was not merely the transfer of an heirloom that captured attention. It was the story behind it, the years of waiting, the promise quietly protected, the deeply personal connection to Diana. Together, those elements transformed the event into something far more meaningful than an ordinary royal development. Within royal circles, many insiders reportedly described the decision as one of William's most heartfelt acts. Those familiar with the pressures of royal life understood how carefully he guarded matters connected to his mother's memory. Because of that, the gesture carried extraordinary weight. It suggested that William had reached a point where he felt complete confidence in the person receiving such an important part of Diana's legacy. That realization alone sparked intense discussion among those who closely observed the monarchy. As details continued to emerge, public interest only intensified. Supporters of the royal family expressed admiration for both William and Catherine. Many viewed the reported gift as a powerful reminder that certain family bonds endure despite the passage of time. Social conversations became filled with reflections about Diana, her influence, and the lasting emotional connection people still feel toward her decades after her passing. The story resonated because it touched something universal: the desire to honor loved ones and preserve the values they leave behind. Inevitably, comparisons between Catherine and Diana resurfaced. Such comparisons have followed Catherine for years, often generating debate and controversy. Yet this time, the conversation seemed different. Rather than focusing on appearance or public image, many people reflected on the qualities both women brought to the monarchy: dedication, compassion, resilience, and ability to connect with people while carrying enormous responsibility. For some observers, the heirloom appeared to symbolize a link between two women who, despite living very different lives, shared a commitment to service and family. At the same time, attention turned toward William's intentions. Why now? Why had he chosen this particular moment after so many years of waiting? Those questions became the subject of widespread speculation. Some believed recent events within the family had encouraged him to act. Others suggested that Catherine's growing importance within the institution had made the timing feel appropriate. Whatever the reason, one conclusion appeared increasingly common among observers: this was not an impulsive decision. It was the result of years of thought, reflection, and emotional consideration. The story also reignited public fascination with Diana's enduring legacy. Once again, people found themselves discussing the remarkable influence she continues to exert over the royal family. Her presence remains woven into countless aspects of royal life, not because of official recognition, but because of the impact she left on those who knew her and those who admired her. Every new chapter connected to her memory serves as a reminder that her story never truly ended. As admiration for Catherine continued to grow, many began viewing her role through a new lens. The reported gesture reinforced the belief that she had become one of the monarchy's most trusted and respected figures. It suggested that her position within the family was no longer defined solely by marriage or title, but by the confidence others placed in her character and judgment. Yet perhaps the most remarkable consequence of the entire story remained hidden from public view. Because while headlines focused on symbolism, legacy, and royal tradition, the true impact unfolded in a much quieter and more personal way. Yet perhaps the most important impact was not public at all, it was deeply personal. In the end, this was never just about an heirloom. It was about memory, family, and a promise kept. It was about ensuring that one remarkable woman's legacy would continue through the people she loved most. As the emotional reaction settled, and the public discussion gradually evolved into reflection, the true meaning of the moment became impossible to ignore. The story was never really about a treasured object. It was about something far more powerful. It was about a son honoring a promise he had carried for years. A promise rooted in love, strengthened by loss, and protected through patience. While the world focused on the heirloom itself, those closest to the story understood that the real significance lay in what it represented. It symbolized the completion of a journey that began long ago and finally reached its destination. For William, fulfilling that promise reportedly brought a profound sense of peace. For years, he had carried the responsibility of deciding how best to protect a cherished part of his mother's legacy. That responsibility was never simple. Every decision carried emotional consequences because it involved someone whose memory remains deeply woven into his life. Yet, by finally placing the heirloom into Catherine's care, he appeared to achieve something he had been working toward for years. He ensured that the values, memories, and meaning attached to it would continue to be protected by someone he trusted completely. For Catherine, the responsibility was equally significant. Receiving the heirloom reportedly marked far more than a personal honor. It represented acceptance into a story much larger than herself. Throughout her years in the royal family, she had steadily earned respect through commitment, resilience, and unwavering dedication. Now, many saw her as becoming not only a future queen, but also a guardian of one of the monarchy's most cherished legacies. The trust placed in her carried enormous emotional weight because it reflected confidence in her ability to preserve something that mattered deeply to William and to countless others around the world. The significance of that trust extends beyond the present generation. One day, new members of the royal family will inherit responsibilities, traditions, and stories that stretch back through history. The heirloom will serve as part of that continuity. It will remind future generations that legacy is not defined by wealth or status alone. It is defined by values, sacrifice, and the willingness to carry forward the lessons of those who came before. In that sense, the heirloom becomes more than an object. It becomes a bridge connecting generations through shared purpose and memory. Perhaps that is why Diana's presence continues to feel so enduring. Years after her passing, her influence remains alive, not because people refuse to let go of the past, but because the qualities she represented continue to inspire the future. Her compassion, humanity, and devotion to her children remain part of the story. They continue to shape decisions, relationships, and moments like this one. Through William, through Catherine, and through the generations that will follow, fragments of that legacy continue moving forward. The reported gesture also strengthened something deeply personal between William and Catherine. Their partnership has endured challenges, scrutiny, and extraordinary expectations. Yet moments like this reveal the foundation beneath those pressures: trust, respect, shared understanding. Those qualities transformed the presentation of the heirloom from a symbolic gesture into a powerful expression of confidence and love. As the royal family continues moving into the future, new chapters will undoubtedly be written. Challenges will emerge, responsibilities will evolve, public attention will shift toward new stories and new generations. Yet certain moments endure because they capture something timeless. This was one of those moments. A promise was honored, a legacy was protected, a family bond was strengthened, and through it all, the memory of a beloved princess continued to inspire those she left behind. And as that treasured heirloom found its new home, it carried with it not only the memory of Princess Diana, but the promise that her legacy would never be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.